got a story with Robin. When I first started doing comedy, and we were out, it was like 83, 82, 83. We don't count. It was out in, when he lived in Kenwood on Highway 12, Old Jeremiah's. Remember that, Larry?
Burn to the ground.
When we were on stage. And let me tell you, Larry looked at me when it's on fire going, do you think we're still going to get paid? But Robin lived in Kenwood at the time, and and we were all new and rookies, and everybody knew that's where to go on the weekends. Robin comes to Kenwood, it's like 2 miles from his house, and he just did Moscow on the Hudson. And the reason I'm telling this story, because I was a rookie and we didn't get paid, but I got laid for the first time. Not the first time, but comedy first time. Because if y'all know me, you know. Okay, anyways. Because I introduced a young lady I met that was in the show. I was the MC. I introduced her to Robin Williams. And I didn't know. I was like introducing everybody to him after that. I was like...
When Robin stopped by, the audience may not know he was even in the room. But what I always like to do to the audience is introduce him as somebody else. So he'd have to do an improv as that person, right, when he came out. Well, my favorite one was going, I'd like to bring you as somebody else. Can I interview you as my dog? And he goes, what kind of dog is it? I said, it's like a golden retriever mix. He goes, so it's got ADD. Okay. All right. And I go, okay. So I came out, I said, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard me talk about my dog Reno. I would like him to come out here. I got a few things I want to ask him. And so Robin came out to applause, and of course, he'd go over there and look at something, and over there he's very ADD. And he'd say, like, where are my balls? Where are my balls? What'd you do? And Reno? I said, Reno, one thing I want to tell you is my wife and I, we don't like it when you jump on the bed when we're having sex. And he goes, yeah, what were you doing? Were you cleaning her? That's been in my act ever since. So.
I have 3 short stories about Robin Williams. I've always been in awe of Robin Williams, in awe of his talent, later on in awe of the person that he was. And so I've always been reluctant to approach him, although I've seen the guy, known the guy since 1982 at the zoo and all these other places. But one night here at the Throck, somebody mentioned Derek and Clive. And I don't know if you know who Derek and Clive are. But Derek and Clive are Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, 2 o'clock in the morning, drunk. They would go into a sound studio and just start improvising, drunk as hell. They ended up doing like 4 albums as Derek and Clive, and they're all filthy dirty and tremendously hilarious. And I mentioned, I said Derek, I heard Derek and Clive, and Robin heard Derek and Clive, and I looked at Robin, and he looked at me, and we both knew who Derek and Clive were. And I remember one of their bits is like, the worst job I ever had. Oh, what was the worst job you ever had? The worst job that I ever had was pulling lobsters out of Jane Mansfield's bum, and we got into it, and we were doing the bit almost word for word, and then we started improvising and finding other things and other celebrities with things up their butts instead. And it was just like crazy, and all of a sudden I stopped myself and I said, shit, what the fuck am I doing? I can't do this. I'm not prepared. I'm not qualified. This is like my 2002 Priya at the Indy 500. I mean, and then I just kind of like stopped, and I went, that's enough. I'm exhausted. You're the king. It was a great moment that I'll forever cherish. Another moment was backstage one night, and this was recently. I think it was late last year or something. And Robin was backstage, and Mark said, "You want to go up?" And he goes, "No, man, I got nothing. I got nothing. I'm sitting there going, "You have nothing? You have more material than several server farms at Google, and you have nothing? What do you mean you have nothing?" And he was really sincere. He had nothing because Robin wouldn't go out unless he had new shit. He would not perform the same shit again for anyone. So he was reluctant. Every audience got to see different jokes, and that, none of us can do that shit. None of us, we all do the same jokes every night until we come up with more. And I just sat there and I go, fuck. He just works in a different world, he just can't. That's crazy. I just remember one night at Igby's, a club in West LA. He walked in and he did like 45, 50 minutes on stuff that had happened in the last 2 weeks. And I just said, this is fucking unreal. This guy is the best that there ever has been. I mean, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind right now. I don't care. It's insane. Because he works at 180 degrees the way the rest of us work. We have a funny thought, we fashion it into a joke, we write it down, and we come out here and we do it for you. Robin just walks out on stage, lets his brain erupt, comedy comes out, somebody in the back room has to write it down for him. And that's how he does the same jokes, for a special or something like that, so he can remember what he was doing. The last thing I just want to say is that a couple of years ago, after Proposition 8 had passed, and there was the American Federation for Equal Rights were trying to get it repealed. I put together a show during Gay Pride Week with 2 straight parents and 2 gay parents, Kevin Meaney and Vicky Shaw, and Mary Ellen Hooper and myself, called So Not the Cleavers. And just, to show people that, hey, parents are parents, that's all. The whole show was about parenting. And we need, half the proceeds were going to go to the American Foundation for Equal Rights, who were going to argue the case to the Supreme Court. And they needed money. And so I said, half the proceeds go to them. And I said, but we need some sponsorship. We were having really hard time getting sponsors. And Robin wrote a check for $5,000 to the American Foundation for Equal Rights to help them argue the case for Proposition 8. So Robin had a big hand in them finally repealing it. So he's a great humanitarian. He's a great friend. He was like the father or the big brother to all of us. And I don't know what we're going to do now, but except celebrate his life. Thanks.
5 years ago, Robin had heart surgery, and he invited Mark and Jeff Bolt and myself up to his place in Napa for lunch. And it was this incredible house. It's just huge, and I'm kind of an inappropriate guy. So the first thing I said to him, what'd you buy this with, Mork money? He goes, no, Popeye. Then he's giving us a tour of the house. I start bouncing up and down in his bed. I go, man, I bet you banged a bunch of famous people on this, huh? Shaking his head. Then I think I said, if I were you, I'd have starlets blowing me in the pool all afternoon. And he said, you should get your show called Lunch with Larry, where you just give inappropriate questions to famous people. We're shooting a pilot next week, and I have a little catchphrase where I go, "Ma," and "Ma." So last year I had a bunch of bumper stickers made up and say "Moi," and I brought them in the green room, and Robin was in there, and he picks them up and started going "Moi, moi," and I'm going "Nanu, Nanu," and this goes on for 15, "Nah, nah, Nanu, Nanu." Last one. Years ago, I used to do a character called Bobby Bitter, which was this disgusting old comic, and I'd be interviewed on stage by David Feldman. We're at the Holy City Zoo, which was about as big as this stage. And Robin was up in the balcony. He watched us for about 20 minutes, and then to get out of the room, he had to walk in front of the stage. And he comes down the steps, he walks in front, and I just point to him and I said, "Come on, Mork, I sat through Popeye." He stopped like that. And for the next 5 years, every time I saw him, the first thing he said to me was, "Come on, Mark, I sat through Popeye." I love the guy. Thank you for coming out. Thank you.
So I first met Robin in 1978 when I was 16, watching him on Mork and Mindy when I was a kid. And fast forward to 1995, I was a stand-in for a 10-year-old boy on the film Jack that he was in. They had this casting call they needed adults between 5 foot and 5'1". I'm like, I can do that. And they're like, oh, we know lesbians to play boys. We got it, great. So it was amazing just watching him work. I think they used up a lot more film than necessary because he would just keep going off, and then everyone on set was totally fine about it. And when you work on a film and you're a lowly extra or stand-in, they always tell you, do not approach Mr. So-and-so, but there was nothing like that with Robin. He was Robin, he was always by his first name and always open to talking to everyone on set, all the kids who would walk by, everyone who wanted to talk to him. So I thought, okay, we've just spent 3 months together, and then I went to see him perform at Bimbo's and went backstage, and he started going on about when we used to perform at the Holy City Zoo, which was before my comedy time, but Robin was talking to me, so I was like, okay, I'll just go with it. And he was mistaking me for some other short Jewish lesbian comedian. I was like, all right, so that's all I have to say, and we love him and miss him.
I didn't know Robin as far back as some of these guys. I mean, we're all in sort of similar circles, but he was very busy and doing a lot of work. And I think it was about, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 or 8 years ago here, he saw me do a joke. I was doing a joke about having grown up in a blue-collar town, and there people are so unhealthy. People were having strokes like in the 8th grade, Timmy, can you tell me the capital of Oklahoma? Somebody call an ambulance for Timmy. I said, but I came up here recently on a Saturday to Mill Valley. I've never seen more 55-year-old men on $6,500 bicycles in my life. It's like, the Tour de AARP up here, for Christ's sake, right? So Rob and I had chatted quite a bit here and there and talked a little bit, but he came up after and said, that is a brilliant observation. It's a funny joke. And he said, do you ride? And I said, no. And he said, why not? And I said, because the bikes are $6,500. That's why I fucking ride. So he called me a while later and he said, come over to my house. And so I came over and he said, I got like 50 bikes. I got 50. There's like 35 here in the garage and 10, I think, up at the ranch and some in Los Angeles. He's got like a car following with bikes in case something, he needs one when he's somewhere. So he said, I'm going to give you one of my bikes so we can ride together. And I said, that's great, Robin, but I'm like 6'3" and you're like 5'4". So unless I'm going to ride it like this in the carnival, maybe. So it didn't quite work out that way. So he calls me a little later and tells me to meet him over in Sausalito. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I go over to Sausalito. It's a bike shop. And the owner comes out and says, Robin wants to build a bike for you. And I said, what? He said, yeah, you're a big, tall guy. You're not going to find a bike in a shop. He wants to build a custom handmade titanium bike for you to ride. And I said I'm like a moron. I told the guy, Tony, at Odyssey Bikes, I said, man, what's that going to run? I'm a blue collar guy. What's that going to run like, $300-400? And the guy said, no, your joke was pretty accurate. We'll try to keep it under $6,000 maybe. And I said, my Subaru Blue Book's at around $3,400. I think I can put a $6,000 bike on the, $1,000 bike on the top of that. So Robin was still in the shop because it's like, I don't know if he's just out of his mind for bikes and he's just like fondling, bike parts, And so I went over to him and I said, hey, look, man, I come from blue collar, stock. I can't let you buy me a $6,000 bicycle. And he said, look, for me, bicycling is mobile therapy, and it's the greatest thing I do, and I'm freest and happiest when I do it. And I want you to experience it with me. I want you to come out with me and ride. So he built the bike, and we took a lot of rides up around his neighborhood in Tiburon for the last, 5 years or so, I guess. And it was always just a great pleasure. I never saw him sort of freer. And talk about courtesy of the guy. Whenever we were going up any hills, and there weren't a lot of hills in this ride, but there were a couple, and he would always turn back and say, is this speed okay for you, boss? I was like, which I took it as sort of a slight since I'm 8 years younger than he is, Yeah, the 8-year-old guy with the bad heart valve's got to drag me along is what's got to happen, right? There's a lot of things about his passing that make us so sad, but I think we were talking, the wife and I, in the car the other day, and one of the things we just came on to is, if we had to lose somebody, did it have to be the really kind, liberal, dog-loving philanthropist, for Christ's sake? He just was, I'm looking at my, I'm looking, when he passed, you do that when someone passes, you're like, oh my God, I need to grab the pictures on my hard drive before they collapse, And so I pulled them off, and here we are, with Stephen Pearl and Reverend Cecil at a Glide Memorial fundraiser. Here we are at the San Francisco Zoo doing a fundraiser. Here we are at every single picture I had was of him volunteering to do a fundraiser. I mean, on many occasions, he had just flown in. I remember Becky called one time and said, could you come to the zoo like tomorrow night? And I said, the San Francisco Zoo? Like, yeah, well, there's a fundraiser there, and Robin has volunteered his services there. And so, but he's just flying in and he's just exhausted. And so can you go just to sort of help him out? So here's how I helped him. One of the things he was doing there was he was volunteering. Your kid can spend overnight at the zoo, and they have like a little camping area, and your kid can have an overnight party in the zoo. So Robin was kind enough that the auction was going to be for Robin to read bedtime stories to your kid. And so the auction started, and then it was like $3,000, $5,000, $7,000, $12,000. I'm not kidding you. We got up to like $35,000. Robin was going to come to the zoo and read to your kid at night, and these two guys were battling it out. So this is how I asked Robin, helped him out that night, and I feel I'm a good friend to him. I said, you know what? Robin's such a good guy. I bet you he'll come to 2 different nights and read. This is a business without a lot of really terribly kind, courteous people. It's a business where if you're going to get ahead, you usually have to have the eyes on the front of your head, and you have to trample people to get there. A friend of mine once said about somebody who shall go unnamed that he knew he was going to be successful because he would gouge out your eyeball with a rusty spoon, and as you stood there screaming, he would use your empty eye socket as a toehold to climb one step higher if it would get him near his dream. Robin was the absolute, I used to call them the anti-Coke brothers. These two bastards can't wait. They've got almost every penny in America, but they can't sleep at night because somebody else somewhere has a nickel in their pocket. Robin was the exact opposite. He had all this wealth and riches, and he couldn't wait to heap it. He couldn't find ways to bring it to other people. One day when I used to work with him, we would try to create humor. I think I was hired because his brain was so great, and he was working on scripts for one show, and he was doing a commercial for something else. I think I was just hired to sit him down and make him think about his upcoming stand. Robin, stand up this week. What? And so I would go over his house daily, and we would work on material and whatnot. I would suggest ideas, and it was just kind of crazy. It's just sort of like Robin Williams, for Christ's sake. So I would say, "Oh, how about politics?" Yeah, all right, that's how I run. Yeah, and then he's off. Yeah, George Bush, what an idiot! This is a family where the smartest guy is named Jeb, and I'm like, yeah. I think I helped write that for you. See? And sometimes we would have a sandwich after, and sometimes we would go over for a bike ride. And one day I went over, and he was a little out of it. And I knew that he had some meetings that morning, and he was very, very tired. And I knew he had some stuff to do that afternoon. But I didn't understand why he was so out of it. And he said, "Hey, man, you mind if we don't work on this stuff today? And I'm just going to hit the shower. I'm feeling a little out of it." And I said, "No trouble." And then so I went to his wife, Susan, and I said, "Boy, he seems out of it. Is he okay?" And she said, "Yeah, today he had a lunch, Make-A-Wish lunch with a 9-year-old kid dying of leukemia." In the middle of this incredibly crazy schedule, that's what he chose to do for his lunch. I mean, I can tell a million more stories, but I'll just tell one more about early on in my friendship with him. It was, I think, 2008 at Comedy Day. He was winning a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Comedy Celebration Day, which is a fun 4-hour free comedy show in Golden Gate Park every year. It happens in about 3 weeks from now. And he was receiving this award, and he was sitting right behind the stage, and there's like 3,000 or 4,000 people there. And so right before he goes on, I remembered that sort of Kanye, sort of Taylor Swift thing had just happened. So I went over and said, "Robin, this may be a crazy idea, but a couple of weeks ago, that Kanye," and he's like, yeah, let's do it. So he barely knew what I planned, but he was totally confident and willing to do so. He goes up there to receive his award, and there's a big introduction, and then they give him his award. He says, "Thank you." And I come up and grab the mic and say, "Robin Williams, I just want to say one thing. I think Beyonce's comedy was funnier." And he goes off with some, "Thank you, Kanye," and a bunch of stuff like that. So he gets off stage, and I don't know if you've ever seen Robin in a crowd. He will not, if there's someone seeking an autograph, he won't stop. He will give you an autograph. And the problem is sometimes he has to. My wife one time came up with a great idea. We were going to dinner here after one of these Mill Valley shows. I think you were there. And he was just mobbed, and he couldn't get away. But he kept, remember the lady came up with a dog? "Will you take a picture with my dog?" And And he's like, okay. So my wife was really smart. She saw that and she went, and so finally she goes, Robin, Susan's calling. It's very important. And so that's the only way we got him out of there. And you can't get him out of there because he would just shake hands and take pictures and be kind to everybody. So that day after he did this, and I'm finishing up here, after he did that thing with me and he won his award and everything, I was way across the backstage. The backstage is like 2 basketball fields. It's fenced in from the audience. And he got off stage, and I remember, I think it was Susan was trying to get him to the car. Because it's like you dropped a jujube at like a picnic. Ants just, people are on top of them, right? And so I didn't know this at the time, but my wife said that he started to get toward the car, and right when he got there, he saw Allison, my wife, and she said to Allison, where's Johnny? And Allison, Johnny, he's over there. So he looked, and I was maybe 150 feet away, and he had all these people around, and they were trying to drag him to the car to get him out of there. And he ran across that back area, and he came over and he tapped me on the shoulder. He said, hey, he shook my hand. He said, hey man, thank you for doing that. That was funny. And I just thought, this is a guy who's an international film star. This is a guy who anybody would be happy to spend 3 seconds on stage with. He's trying to get out of there so he doesn't get mobbed to death, and he runs across the entire back area, comes over and tells us, we weren't even really paddling or biking at that point, and he came over to this guy he barely knows and said, thank you very much, that was just so funny. That to me is Robin in a nutshell, and I'll remember just his kindness as much or more than his talent and laughter. I'll remember there's a lot of funny people there, but there weren't too many people as kind and nice and giving as Robin.
Apparently, Johnny thought that was a paid spot. Oh. Suppressed laughter is the easiest laugh to get in the business. But that reminded me, once I was with Dana Carvey was at a shoe store in I think Strawberry, and he was buying shoes, and then Robin came in and he was buying shoes, but Robin was first, and Robin bought Dana's shoes for him. And he was telling me the story. Dana and I were at the airport. We were going to go to Vegas, and I got a text from Robin, and I said, oh, I'm with Dana. He's wearing the shoes you got him. And he wrote back, how's he like him? And Dana said, okay. And Dana says, great, but he needs some socks. But Robin, when you texted him, he was so literally goes, what kind? He was like really, he was going to buy socks, So we had Michael Meehan was left. And Michael, you came late, so you're last. And you have something, you have something special in your hand?
Sorry, I was late. I was at the Lauren Bacall Memorial over at the Castro. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and foes, pimp daddies and hoes, deadheads, redheads, meth heads, bad breath heads, hacks, mimes, comics waiting to do stage time, and everyone gathered here in this fireside chatter, all who were touched by this spirit, this friend who has gone away to the big green room in the next world, we say goodbye. This comedy comet that streaked across a lifetime of double-fisted, supercharged, cuckoo juice-fueled rocket ship of the most powerful elixir fixer of every known malady, the Prince of Comedy, our Robin. He owned us from the moment he hit the stage and unleashed a tornado of the funniest, most inventive, hilarious magic a mind can make up, delivering the most enormous antidote to all, laughter. In a venomous world of hurt, his rapid-fire kung fu flurry of machine gun funny, he brought the history of the world to the stage, and our feet made us double over. Whether he spoke to us in a hallway or an amphitheater, he left us, righted us, uppercut us to the bone that was funny. He was money, he gave that away too, running at the mouth that wouldn't quit until the last joke lay in a chalk outline as we slow danced away into the receding dust cloud he left, drifting in our disbelief at what just happened today and all the times of yesterday. He was magic. We gather in sorrow, for there's no tomorrow for our beloved Robin. We miss you, we kiss you goodbye. Push up a daisy we can squirt from our lapels or dry. Press in a book of all you took and made funny and die with laughter. You left us too soon. Only a lifetime we knew you. You minced, you pranced, you princed, you danced, you peed in our pants, left no dick joke behind. We're bereft at your exit stage left, but we never could get enough of you even when you wore us out. You spoke truth to power, made fun of the mighty, pulled us into the deep end of the pool and to think or swim or get out of the way, the next joke's coming in. Your joy lifted all boats, the yachts, the have-nots. The lot of us will not see a magnificent star pass this way again. So we hold the beautiful piece of you you left behind. How could you get so low when we had seen you soar to such heights? Let us not torture ourselves with despair. You wouldn't stand for it. The whys, the what ifs, oh, the riffs. You gave us lots of material to go back over. The movies, TVs, interviews, search for clues. Some of us will just pop a cork and spill a drop for our homeboy from Ork. Mork, we miss you in your final nanu, nanu. Even angels get tired of lugging their wings around. Rest in peace, Brother Robin. Rest in peace. We love you.
Thank you, Michael. Well,